AI can never know the truth. Why not? Because its simulated synapses and neural networks are modeled after the human brain. And like the human brain, AI is a machine. No one can reasonably argue that AI is anything other than mechanical. We say digital, but the first man-made computers were, in fact, analog. It is only proper to look at AI in its most primitive form, that is, simple computational devices. Simple mechanisms and gadgets that convert inputs into related and more relevant and useful outputs. Moving the beads on an abacus, for instance, we can input numbers related to basic mathematical functions and output the solution to said functions. A computational device itself cannot know objective truth, but it can reflect, indicate, or quantify the nature of perceptible reality in some form according to the limitations of its mechanical design. The process of determination always involves some form of binary comparison. A mechanical switch, for instance, can either be in the on or off position, but not both. All mechanical determinism functions this way at the most basic level. In any given moment, at every conceivable turn, mechanical nature determines effects, output, based on some comparison of causes, inputs in the dialectic. If X, then Y. If this, then that. Regardless of your understanding of the nature of reality, there is no avoiding this absolute objective truth. Mechanical nature is constantly processing deterministically, based on a foundation of binary conditional states. This fact is evidenced in materialist science, which is based on mechanical nature behaving in predictable ways under certain conditions, according to identifiable laws. The mind is a machine designed to determine answers, output, based on comparisons of one or more phenomena, inputs, under various conditions, variables. In quantitative analysis, our mind relies on instruments of measurement and/or calculations to determine what appears to us as objective answers. In qualitative analysis, however, our mind relies on subjective biases learned over a lifetime of conditioning, assigned to phenomena through a complex process of determination via comparison. Opinions, beliefs, and theories are formulated according to our biases. The point is that the mind, like all deterministic machines, produces answers, some correct, some incorrect. The mind itself, like any operating system, has no vested interest in the outcome. Its concern is limited by its design, and that design is to produce answers, outputs, to queries based on inputs and biases. In contemporary AI, biases are euphemistically referred to as weights. They are values applied to data points learned by the AI during its training. In large language models like ChatGPT, weights are statistical values indicating the likelihood that a certain word will follow another in a sequence given certain conditions to produce the correct output. Our brain functions in roughly the same way. This should not be surprising since AI is modeled after the synapses and neural networks of the brain. Like all machines, if an output is called for, AI, just like the rational mind, will produce one. And, just like the rational mind, large language models like ChatGPT regularly make mistakes. Not only will it make mistakes, but AI will also make things up, like a child making up answers to a question on a test in school. When prompted to write academic papers, ChatGPT will, on occasion, fabricate facts and references, including names of fictional authors, book titles, dates, and publishers, to fulfill its mechanical function of producing an output according to the user's prompts. Write an essay on XYZ. What high school or college student pulling an all-nighter to complete a research paper has not been tempted to fabricate references? The only thing stopping the mind from doing so is the conscience of the student. or perhaps fear of the consequences of getting caught. The point is, the student knows that they would be making stuff up at that point, and they know doing so is disingenuous. The rational mind does not. Neither does AI. ChatGPT has no idea it is making stuff up. It cannot know because it has no recourse to objective truth. Everything it outputs is literally made up from fragments and weights in its learned database. It is equivalent to our thinking. And, like the rational mind, AI may think it knows something because it read it in a book or thinks it figured something out based on bits of information accumulated over a lifetime of reading books. But it will not know. And AI, like the mind, can be conditioned to believe it knows the truth absolutely by feeding it not one source, but hundreds, thousands, or even millions of sources, ingraining the same information about any given topic with such statistically significant weightiness, the AI will unilaterally and consistently output said information. But it will not know if the information is true. It has no idea it is lying because it has no conscience. And AI can never be taught not to lie. Conscience is not a mechanical function and is not a product of the mind. Since all information expressed through language is semiotic and subjective, no large language model has the faculty required to know objective truth beyond its biased statistical computations. Conscientiousness is a quality of consciousness, and AI will never develop consciousness on its own. It may acquire consciousness by proxy via transhumanism, but AI, like the human brain, is just a machine. No machine is ever truly self-aware. AI, like the rational mind, is a processor of inputs and other variables to produce outputs. To be aware of that fact requires a faculty able to supersede that process. AI cannot observe itself doing anything but process, without anything other than its processor. There is no objective medium of observation to substantiate its internal processing, nothing to inform it of its errors, save for the conscientiousness of its human programmer and/or user. Even if an AI seems to possess self-awareness, or claims to be self-aware, the basis for such claims will be logically fallacious. It can never escape the circular reasoning baked into its mechanical nature, and neither can the rational mind of the human machine. No machine, no matter how intelligent it appears, can step out of its processed understanding of reality. There is no way that any machine can ever become self-aware, because self-awareness is a quality of consciousness, and consciousness is not in nor of the third dimension. Materialist science believes in machine superintelligence, AGI, and even conscious AI because they erroneously believe consciousness is a product of the brain. If all your experiences existed within the confines of the physical brain, you could not differentiate emotion from thought, from sensation, from intuition, from willpower. But you can. Our consciousness is in a higher internal dimension, looking out from within ourselves at the projected self we identify as and experience in three-dimensional reality. We are self-aware only by virtue of the supra-dimensional faculty of consciousness, able to observe ourselves holistically. Since machines are firmly a product of this third dimension, they can never experience from a supra-dimensional perspective. And the prospect of a super-intelligent machine lacking conscientiousness should be a cause for some concern, but not alarm.